Chapter 2257, Judgment and Eternity. The sin of blasphemy against the divine maximized the storage capacity of the dimensional space, absorbing every last ripple of energy from the battle between the two combatants. When it reached the limit of its capacity, it released everything in one breath. This was Zhang Yi's most devastating killing move. The terrifying energy and heart-stopping pressure even made the murderous Xinglu feel a flicker of fear. The searing sensation didn't stem from rising temperature, but from overwhelming energy radiation. Merely gazing at the black sphere made one feel their cells were about to explode from the unbearable aftereffects of its power. This technique could even injure Zhang Yi himself, demanding flawless defensive preparations during its release. Fortunately, Ling's human form was present, eliminating that complication. The colossal dark star descended, its speed appearing deceptively slow. Xinglu attempted to evade, but it was like trying to outrun the sun. The dark star descended at a constant velocity, closing in relentlessly no matter which direction he fled. When it came within 1,000 meters of Xinglu, blood spurted from his already collapsing body like arrows. He would die. For the first time, this thought struck Xinglu's mind. If hit directly by this strike, even in his current state, he would surely die. After all, the overwhelming power of this attack stemmed largely from himself. It was as if he had unleashed tens of thousands of strikes against his own body in a single breath. A fierce resistance to death surged through Xinglu, accelerating the flow of blood throughout his body while his mind raced. No! I absolutely cannot die. I absolutely cannot lose. I am the guardian deity of the Wulwan Empire. I must survive, defeat, crush, and slay every enemy to protect my Wulwan clan. His eyes turned deep emerald green from extreme bloodshot, and he opened his massive, fang-filled maw, letting out a piercing, shrill roar. Arg! Every cell strained to its limit, mitochondria working at peak capacity as countless cells began to necrotize. Squeezing every last ounce of energy from his being, he violently forced forth both his own power and that which was not his own. These forces converged in his throat, aimed at the dark star plummeting from the heavens, unleashing an earth-shattering blast. The translucent black light clashed with the all-consuming antimatter energy. Upon contact, the two divergent forces collided like a meteor striking Earth, generating unimaginable energy fluctuations. The essence of Zhang Yi's power of the void was antimatter, substance from the world's opposite side. It would trigger terrifying antimatter explosions upon contact with anything in the physical world. The two forces were nearly equal in intensity, yet Zhang Yi, drawing upon stored power from others, clearly handled it with greater ease. He shielded himself with outstretched arms, using Ling's human form to absorb the explosive shockwave's devastating impact. The sole drawback was that activating sin of blasphemy weakened the dimensional gate's intensity, making it optimal for single use only. Any subsequent use would significantly diminish its potency. Yet the impact of this strike was more than sufficient to satisfy Zhang Yi. Shockwaves surged outward like successive tsunami waves, shattering layer upon layer of the binding chains enveloping the surrounding space until they dissipated into the air. A frigid energy storm exploded across the heavens, tearing a gaping hole in the vast space formed by the realm-binding chain. The escaping power unleashed a terrifying hurricane. Zhang Yi glanced at Ling's energy gauge, which was now nearly depleted. His gaze shifted toward the distant horizon, where Xinglu stood. Once the chaotic energy storm subsided, he spotted Xinglu's figure, more weathered and battered than before, his body streaked with blood in a disturbingly vivid pattern. Having endured successive impacts, Xinglu was now extremely weakened. Like an overheated cannon barrel that had unleashed its entire charge, the once imposing martial Xinglu now appeared abnormally gaunt, a dark green mummy whose scalp was completely bald. He fixed Zhang Yi with a gaze whose murderous intent showed no sign of waning. I still live. Now it's your turn to die. His finger pointed at Zhang Yi. Though he appeared near death, his words radiated unmatched arrogance. Zhang Yi's guard rose. Oh? But it seems to me the one who should die is you. Xinglu suddenly let out a cold laugh, a sound chilling to the bone. His hands crossed over each other, and a terrifying power, unlike anything before, rapidly surged forth from his palms. Zhang Yi's eyes widened slightly. Has this guy lost his mind? Such overwhelming power was squeezing out his own life force, determined to settle this with Zhang Yi at any cost. He was even embracing the notion of mutual destruction in this desperate gamble. At this very moment, Jinglu had realized that the Wulwan Empire likely faced a crisis of national extinction. The last shred of hope vanished completely, along with his previous contempt for humanity. He acknowledged this was a terrifying race, possessing the power to annihilate the entire Wulwan clan. Therefore, as the Empire's war god, he would rather die himself than leave the enemy's greatest threat alive. Success or death? A terrifying black light violently coalesced in his palm, the scent of death spreading. Zhang Yi's left eye, the second hand of time, which observed the future, sensed that the visions of the future were becoming blurred. The power was so immense it was actually affecting the future itself. At that moment, Zhang Yi harbored not a shred of hesitation. With extraordinary courage, he shouted, "Ling, it's up to you." Unfettered by the pride of a powerful warrior, he chose to set aside his ego in the face of ultimate stakes, seeking another's protection. This fearless spirit of sacrifice was profoundly moving. Then, a deep blue brilliance flared in Ling's eyes as all the energy within her source converged in that instant. It was like squeezing every last drop of potential from a car when the fuel gauge showed just 1 bar left, stomping the accelerator to the floor. The space around Ling seemed to freeze, all physical motion slowing to an agonizing crawl. She sheathed her sword, raised it high above her head, and gathered her strength. Jinglu unleashed his fatal strike, a blow so swift it sealed off the vast expanse before him, leaving Zhang Yi no chance to escape. Time and space itself warped under the force. Clang! Ling's ice dragon sword shot from its scabbard in that instant. A piercing dragon's roar echoed across the heavens as an icy blue space formed a vast domain, enveloping everything in a frosty chill. Chapter 2258, Formless Power, Formless Strength. It was not the cold of ice, but the pure, soul-chilling silence of a world frozen in time. The ice dragon sword struck down with unadorned force, its transparent blue sword light threatening to cleave the world in two. In that instant, Zhang Yi felt as if he were reliving the scene witnessed that day in the Tianyu Palace. The ultimate expression of offensive power, the pure manifestation of ethereal force, it was the most fundamental cosmic principle influencing the very workings of the physical world. This transcended the realm of supernatural powers currently comprehensible to humanity. This collision was so intense that Zhang Yi could barely discern it, relying only on the second hand of time, for a hazy observation. Neither Ling's power nor Jinglu's power was something he could comprehend at his current level. Yet witnessing warfare at this level deepened his understanding of ether, spirit essence, telekinesis, and matter. The strike bathed the sky in brilliant light. Across the entire Wulwan Empire, in every direction, a magnificent, dazzling spectacle of energy and light filled the heavens, shimmering and radiant, transforming the very color of the sky. Yet no one knew the outcome of this battle. They could only tremble in awe, submitting to the spectacle while hoping their own supreme champion would emerge victorious. Zhang Yi watched as Ling's energy gauge drained completely dry, sighing helplessly. Even the combined power of the entire nation could only sustain Ling's physical form for a little over 2 hours. And this state was far from her full recovery. To restore her to her peak condition, it would likely require gathering the power of the entire world. No wonder Ling had once said, "Form is powerless, formlessness is power." Only the power of the ether was supreme. At that moment, a cold, murderous intent enveloped Zhang Yi's entire body. He looked up to see the emaciated Jinglu staring intently at him. Jinglu's state was utterly pitiful. Dark green blood dripped from his body, only to evaporate completely mid-air. He seemed to be doing this deliberately, having already suffered a major setback at Zhang Yi's hands. His vital energy was depleted, making him appear as skin stretched over bones. In the clash with Zhang Yi, or more accurately, with Ling's human form, he had burned through all his reserves. Zhang Yi wasn't much better off either. His greatest asset, Ling's human form, had completely entered standby mode. After all, this wasn't a mecha suit. Unable to control Ling's physical form, it automatically bulleted Zhang Yi's body. Thus, for the first time in this battle, Zhang Yi used his own physical body, appearing before Jinglu. Zhang Yi's aura was noticeably weaker than Ling's physical form. Jinglu's face twisted into an expression of excitement bordering on madness. He knew full well that the human before him was far weaker than himself. The true power lay in that human form. So even though he was covered in wounds, facing Zhang Yi, whose ability index was over 10,000 points lower than his own, he remained confident he could kill him. From his gaze, Zhang Yi had already guessed what Jinglu was thinking. Yet Zhang Yi showed no fear whatsoever. His gaze remained as still and unruffled as a frozen lake. Gripping Ling's arm, Zhang Yi cracked his neck and flexed his wrists. Now then, it's time for our battle to truly begin. Though Ling had repeatedly warned Zhang Yi not to use her body as a weapon, but Zhang Yi couldn't afford to care about that now. After all, Ling's human form was temporarily unconscious. This formidable body was useless if not utilized. Die for me. Jinglu's roar was hoarse. His body was nearly drained of power, leaving him in an extremely weakened state. Yet facing Zhang Yi, he mustered every ounce of strength to channel a burst of void destiny energy, unleashing it with all his might. Black light engulfed the vast space ahead, but a sharp gleam flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. Simultaneously, a crimson energy crystal blazed fiercely within the furnace of his demon god armor. Operating at his combat limit, Zhang Yi, a black bishop of level 40,000 points, now possessed combat strength rivaling someone with 45,000 points. Jinglu's condition had deteriorated drastically. His void destiny could no longer generate the same level of intimidation as before. The second hand of time now clearly traced his offensive trajectory. Zhang Yi swept across the entire sky like a whirlwind. Freed from the realm binding chain, his space shuffle ability faced no further constraints. From this moment onward, the vast expanse of the heavens was his domain to traverse freely. Jinglu's attack was effortlessly dodged by Zhang Yi. Then, fixing his gaze on the distant Jinglu, he clenched his left fist with all his might. Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing. The entire space instantly collapsed, crushing down fiercely with Jinglu at its center. The immense force made Jinglu feel as if he were bearing the weight of a mountain, his spine suddenly buckling downward. Moreover, this force wasn't coming from just one direction, but from every direction within the entire space. Jinglu's already gravely wounded body couldn't withstand such damage. Blood gushed forth, and every bone in his frame emitted a screech sound. Gritting his teeth against the excruciating pain, he roared, unleashing a torrent of black energy that erupted from his body. Even a gravely wounded white knight, still a knight-tier warrior, would never tolerate such humiliation. Whoosh! He vanished from his position, accelerating to the absolute limit of his body, then accelerating further, reaching speeds too fast for the naked eye to track. Having lost Ling's earthly form as his support, Zhang Yi's strength and speed had plummeted significantly. He couldn't discern where Jinglu was positioned, nor anticipate how he would attack. But Zhang Yi didn't need his eyes to see, nor his body to sense. He only needed to know what Jinglu would do within the next 4 seconds. Boom! Black energy whipped up a terrifying storm in the sky above. The hurricane, born from its super high-speed movement, seemed poised to tear apart everything in space. Moving at hypervelocity, Jinglu suddenly launched a punch from beneath Zhang Yi's body. The target was squarely aimed at Zhang Yi's lower half. Evidently, Jinglu hadn't forgotten the grudge from Zhang Yi's earlier strike to his groin. Black void destiny energy, accompanied by Jinglu's terrifying killing intent, closed the distance in an instant. But Zhang Yi had anticipated his move. Without hesitation, he ducked swiftly, slamming Ling's body down with all his might. Simultaneously, a colossal black hole erupted behind Zhang Yi. Its dark radiance devoured the surrounding light, plunging the entire sky into gloom. This marked the first time Zhang Yi had channeled his own energy into battle during this clash. Chapter 2259, 3 years to receive your Majesty's grace. Surging black energy surged over Zhang Yi's body like a tidal wave, enveloping Ling's human form before erupting toward Jinglu below. It resembled a surging black river, accompanied by the terrifying screech of antimatter colliding with the air of the physical realm. This was no longer merely an energy entity, it felt like manipulating a vast river of asphalt to contaminate the physical world. Dark Realm Current. Guided by Ling, Zhang Yi finally grasped the true nature of the dark matter he had once deemed a force from the void, along with the methods to command it. Though his current power fell far short of Mammon's level, it proved more than sufficient for battles at his present stage. The dark torrent plunged from the heavens like a pitch-black celestial river, devouring the energy bodies of the void destiny it touched. Jinglu, witnessing this, stared in disbelief, his eyes wide. Had his power truly weakened to such an extent? Though shaken, Jinglu swiftly dodged the strike. Under Zhang Yi's intent, the torrent twisted mid-air like the meandering yellow river, coiling like a giant serpent in pursuit. My dark realm torrent isn't a simple burst of energy. Rather, it obeys my will. It shifts course at my command, pursuing enemies to the death. The black river surged across the heavens. Viewed from the direction of the Wulwan Empire, it resembled a black ribbon twisting, spiraling, and dancing ceaselessly in the sky. This eerie spectacle was the first of its kind Jinglu had ever witnessed. Materializing energy. This is an ultra-high-level application of supernatural energy. How could mere humans master such a power? Even Jinglu had only scratched the surface of this ability. Ultimately, the competition among mutants boils down to their understanding of ether and matter, then using the power of their own ether fragments to influence the physical world. At the final stage, all forces in this world, gravity, friction, electromagnetic forces, even the mutants' extraordinary energies would unify into a single, primordial force, the energy of the Creator from the ether, the very essence that birthed all things in the universe. The greatest truths are the simplest. Whoever understood power most profoundly and wielded it most exquisitely would gain infinite advantages in battle. This was precisely why, the further one advanced, the more pronounced the gap in ability index became. Jinglu's strike, Void Destiny, could pierce through Zhang Yi's everything under heaven, which was nearly immune to physical attacks. Yet now, Zhang Yi's Dark Realm Pursuit presented a different challenge, a capability even more troublesome than Void Destiny. Dark matter could annihilate all matter within the physical world, a terrifying substance that must never be touched. Dark Realm Current pursued Jinglu like a colossal black serpent, moving at Zhang Yi's command. Though Jinglu was swift, he could not outpace Zhang Yi's intent. This guy. Panic gripped Jinglu's heart. He saw the potential for evolution within Zhang Yi. Time seemed to rewind 3 years. Back then, the humans he encountered were a feeble race, easily crushed at his whim. Yet in just 3 years, mere human years. A fleeting moment for the Wulwan clan, they had grown to this extent. Is this the significance of the 6th generation humans' birth? Their growth is astonishingly swift. I finally understand why the Creator fashioned these seemingly insignificant and fragile creatures. Jinglu acknowledged humanity's strength, but he could never simply concede defeat. Hiss. The lizard man let out a furious roar, then spun in the sky, dodging Dark Realm Stream's attack and charging straight toward Zhang Yi. His speed was too great, Dark Realm Stream could only chase after him. Jinglu's target was Zhang Yi's main body. Attacking Zhang Yi would force his own assault to halt. The plan was sound, but Zhang Yi had been waiting for precisely this move. Zhang Yi never shied away from close combat. Especially now. Come on. Zhang Yi swung Ling in his hand, delivering a fierce, unadorned strike toward Jinglu. Jinglu swung his fist, unleashing a tempest with a single strike. The two collided head-on, their blows meeting in an instant. Boom! Jinglu's fist slammed into Ling's body, instantly feeling as though he'd struck a mountain forged from the universe's hardest substance. Even his fist throbbed with intense pain. What the hell is this? Has human technology advanced to this level? Jinglu's right fist bone shattered, blood streaming as he roared in fury. Zhang Yi channeled the demon god armor to absorb Jinglu's force. The armor trembled violently as the power surged through him, only to be largely dissipated by the inner layer of the suit. Even so, Zhang Yi's entire body still shook. What immense power! The lizardman's innate abilities are truly terrifying. Zhang Yi couldn't help but marvel. The term lizardmen might not be entirely accurate, for billions of years ago, this race could have been called dinosaurs. Their massive bodies, forged in the unique environment of that planet, granted them incredibly robust physiques. The ancient Wulwan clan might have once possessed a civilization of unparalleled splendor. The Ecuadorian of that era had also clashed with the Drucker. Alas, times had changed, and the individual he now faced was Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi cracked his neck, hoisting Ling's body as he pressed forward. Behind Jinglu, the massive dark tidal wave surged toward him, pinning him in a pincer attack. A new round of combat commenced. Zhang Yi advanced steadily, unhurried and methodical. He could see Jinglu was pushed to his absolute limit. Maintaining this pace would inevitably lead to victory. Yet he would not take unnecessary risks. A bishop-level mutant fighting for their life was an extremely dangerous foe. Moreover, Zhang Yi was awaiting a signal. A signal that would trigger the Allied forces' full-scale assault. Above the heavens, across the four battlefronts, the oppressive aura of combat enveloped the entire Wulwan Empire. At the very heart of the Wulwan Empire, where the Imperial Palace stood, a vast black cloud hovered behind Yang Xinqin. The fallen angel puppet hung its head limply, waiting silently for its master's command. Directly before her, a massive, ancient mecha, entirely black, radiating boundless spectral resentment, stood imposing, blocking the palace gates.